I do not like George W. Bush. I am no fan of the wars that he got us into and that still linger to this day, causing us extensive problems. Donald Trump is pulling what little troops we have in Syria out, and it's a pretty complicated issue, but I'm a pretty anti-intervention kind of individual, so I kind of lean towards being like, wow, that's pretty much a good thing, getting out of Syria. I do understand that's going to leave the Kurds high and dry. It's complicated. I don't want to talk about all the war stuff, because, I'd go on forever. This story is about woke outrage over Ellen DeGeneres being seen, gasp, with George W. Bush. And as I stated, I am no fan of his. But here's the thing, okay? This photo, I think they have the photo in here that I'm going to show you. So this image was displayed on the TV, and heavens, you can see George W. Bush sitting next to Ellen DeGeneres. How is it that a Hollywood liberal is sitting next to a conservative Republican president? Surely the world must be ending. I have a very, very simple answer for you. Is it because Ellen is friends with George W. Bush? Well, she says she's friends with a lot of people, and she does allude to the fact, I do believe she says she's friends with him. So, yeah, but that's not why they're sitting next to each other. They're sitting next to each other for a really simple reason. Guess what? It's because they both got invited to a game, and a bunch of people were sitting next to different people. This is so insane. But obviously, because of George W. Bush's his history, the wars, your typical fare, right? Your standard fare of woke outrage is they're coming after her. A bad look for Ellen show? For what? Going to a football game and being a celebrity so you sit next to other high-profile individuals? That's literally it. It's like, you know what, man? This is what they do. There are photos of me teaching migrant children how to fly a drone. It's this beautiful photo where the kids are all swarming around and looking at, it was the GoPro drone controller. They discontinued it. It's kind of sad. But it was this cool thing. It was like this oval box. You open it, you had a screen on it. So the kids are looking, and it's a great little photo. We were at an airport in Athens where it was being used as a refugee center, and these kids were watching me, fly my drone around and film, and they came over, and I showed them how it worked. It's a great little photo, isn't it? But here's the thing. I also happen to have interviewed some alt-right people, and that's the photo. They're like, look at Tim. He's at the same bar as them. And I'm not eating food. Like in the picture, it's like a glass of water. Other people are drinking. I'm not even drinking because I'm doing what journalists do. I showed up. We talked. We argued a little bit. And then I laughed and said, if I'm going to try and understand somebody and talk about it to all of you, yeah, I'm going to have to go and sit down with people I probably disagree with. And that's literally what we did. So now, while I'm also not a big fan of Ellen DeGeneres, she's fine. I mean, whatever. George W. Bush got us involved in a bunch of really messed up wars that have been going on endlessly. And those problems have been long-standing. So I hold a particular, you know what, man, there's a bunch of things. Do you know what Directive 50, Presidential Directive 51, is it? I made a video about it. It's on my other channel. But basically, I believe it was like 2007, Bush signed into law this executive plan. And I can understand why this might be a good thing, but it allows the president, for seemingly arbitrary reasons, like relatively, to completely overthrow the U.S. government. It's a really crazy thing. The video game, The Division, is based off of this. It basically says if there's a catastrophe somewhere in the world that results in major loss of life, the president has the authority to form a constitutional government with like a new executive branch. And it's like, the point is, we can debate the merits of that. The point is, I'm not a fan of the guy. But I'm also not insane enough to be like, look at this picture. They must be best friends. No, they're literally at a football game. You know what, man? I've watched basketball games, and guess what? Courtside tickets or whatever it is, you'll see a bunch of people, celebrities, sitting next to each other. And then what, you assume they're all best friends? What is she supposed to do? Pull out a protest sign and shove it in his face? This is look. So the defense she took, I find, I can find respectable. She said, well, here's the story. We're all different. We've forgotten that is okay. Ellen DeGeneres defends herself after being pilloried online for sitting with her friend, George W. Bush, at a Dallas Cowboys game. Now, I will stress, I do not believe she went there with George W. Bush. That's the point, right? She's with her wife, Portia de Rossi, and it just so happens they sat next to George Bush. But she said, quote, here's the thing, I'm friends with George Bush. In fact, I'm friends with a lot of people who don't share the same beliefs I have. Now, I actually take issue with that statement. And to an extent, I'll actually kind of agree with some of the woke outrage. Listen, man, you don't have to be friends with the guy to not be, to defend yourself for sitting next to him. I think there's absolute reasons why someone would not want to be friends with George W. Bush. That's fine. okay? And I think we can be cordial and respectable, but you don't have to be friends, okay? There are people in this country that I'm willing to sit next to and talk with that I'm not going to be friends with. That's fine. Ellen DeGeneres doesn't have to come out and defend the guy over his beliefs when it's not his beliefs I'm particularly concerned about. It's the endless Middle Eastern wars. And you know, it's really funny. The Babylon Bee, I don't know if you've been following the story about Syria and the troop pullout and what Trump is doing. I might do something about that later. I think it's really, really fascinating. It's complicated. But the Babylon Bee wrote something like the people are outraged because Trump is ending, violating norms by ending the endless wars or something like that. I find it funny. But you actually do have a lot of people who are angry that Trump wants to pull out of the Middle East. This is somehow turning into a war thing. Let's read. So let me just show you the outrage. So Ellen tweeted this last night. Yes, that was me at the Cowboys game with George W. Bush over the weekend. Here's the whole story. And she showed this video clip where she turns her phone to George W. Bush, and there he is. I also want to point out, it's so strange that there was a video, I think, of Michelle Obama giving George W. Bush a piece of candy that went viral, and all of the left was like, "Aw," and I'm kind of shocked by that. There was a poll recently that I think it found that George W. Bush has more favorability among Democrats now, than they ever did or something. It was like 53%. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I will tell you, memory is selective, and you know what, man? I think with what Trump represents, a populist right, the establishment right, some of them got in line and said, you know what? And they said, we will play the Trump game. A lot of them became never Trumpers and actually went and voted for Hillary Clinton. I kid you not. I've actually met some of these people. They're like, one guy I know, moderately wealthy, and said, no, Trump is wrong. And he went. And so what I think happens is you look at the old parties. You look at Lindsey Graham, right? You look at these Republicans who are outraged that Trump would be withdrawing troops from Syria. And then I look at the people on the left who have defended George W. Bush, and I think it's because the left has absorbed a lot of these pro-war people. That's why I think a lot of the anti-war left, like Maffick Media, for instance, are targeted with censorship. Anti-media, I believe, was also censored. That big story about live action being censored on Pinterest, in that list you can see anti-media as well, which is an anti-war outlet. So going down, we can see where we get to the beginning of the woke outrage. And I love Aaron Rupar. He's at Vox, I believe, or he is, whatever. This is a bad look for the Ellen show. A bad look. Oh no. Clinton Yates said, Ellen sitting next to W definitely qualified as a Sunday shocker. Yeah, kind of. But so what? They sat next to each other. I once sat next to, whatever. I've sat next to a bunch of people on airplanes. So I'm like, oh, hey, I know you, right? Whatever. Here's Aaron Rupar. I don't care how nice of a guy George W. Bush is. He was one of our worst presidents and left our country and world in bad shape. The mess he helped create, we're still trying to dig out of. This is a bad look for Ellen. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks said something to the effect of, if Trump keeps us out of war with Iran, he'll have been a better president than George W. Bush. Something like that. And I could be getting that wrong, but assuming that's what he said, I agree. So I'm actually, I'd be surprised that outrage isn't greater. Like there isn't more, especially now that she's coming out and saying she's friends with them. I'm going to have to say, man, that's a pretty tough statement, because we're not talking about beliefs. We're not talking about George W. Bush being a Christian conservative. We're talking about him starting several wars. That's the big issue, right? Parker Malloy says, just Ellen DeGeneres hanging out with her buddy George W. Bush taking in a football game. Anyway, bold choice for the Ellen Show to hang out with GWB 2 days before SCOTUS. We'll hear a case about whether it will be legal to discriminate against LGBTQ people in employment. Now, look, I can point out that Ellen said that she's friends. Okay, you want to criticize her for being friends with the guy? That I could understand. Like, come on, man. They like, but I'm going to have to point that out, that the left likes to take photographs of people sitting next to each other and act like it's the end of the world, when in reality, she went to this game and he happened to have been sitting there. Now, okay, she wants to say she's friends. I understand what she's doing. Civility, okay? Respect for the other side, respect for, conservatives and liberals need to respect each other. That I can understand and agree with. But it also feels like kind of a whitewashing of what the Bush era really was. My criticism of Bush isn't about his domestic policy stuff. It's his foreign policy. I mean, it's always foreign policy for me, right? So I get it, but I'm gonna say this clearly: the woke outrage has more to do with, presumably, more to do with social issues, in which case I can understand why she said what she said. Now, she took this tweet that said, Ellen and George Bush together makes me have faith in America again. What the guy actually tweeted was, ha, ha, ha. Ellen and George Bush together makes me have faith in America again. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was serious. She edited the tweet. That's kind of weird. So they go on to show these quotes. I get it. She concluded by thanking Charlotte and Jerry Jones, as well as George and Laura Bush, for a Sunday afternoon that was so fun, but added that they owe her $6 for the nachos. I love it when your establishment celebrities hang out with former conservative presidents. Listen, there's one thing I want to absolutely slam and criticize in this. The elites, the celebrities, they're playing a game. That's what it's all about. The fact that she's going to sit next to George W. Bush, she can then make her point about, we have to be civil and respect each other. The fact that Michelle Obama is seen in that video handing George W. Bush, that shows us that when they get up on stage and talk about how bad the other side is, they're full of it. It is kind of an open secret that you'll see these high-profile hotels where Democrats and Republicans will be seen together, hanging out, having beers, drinking, and having fun and being friends. And that's kind of a good thing, right? We're losing that. And I wouldn't want the opposite. But I will stress, when you hear from these people, outrage, contempt, oh, how dare they believe this or do this? How dare they push this law? And then they go behind the scenes and they're laughing and giggling and eating nachos together. Their outrage is fake. You can disagree, okay? I know there are people that I'm friends with that I do disagree with. And I will politely and cordially say, look, we're friends. We really disagree on so many things. And we have good conversations about it. But what I'm specifically talking about is when they get up on stage and say, how dare you? How dare you do this? And they go up on their show and say, we can't have this. We must stop. And then you think there's this big passion and this big emotional outburst. And then they walk, they leave and they go to the football game and there they are with their buddy and they're wink, wink, nudge, nudging. It makes me believe that most of them don't actually believe what they claim to believe. But in the end, I'm going to point out one more important thing. Ellen might not like George W. Bush. What do you want her to do? Okay? She sits next to him. He's smiling and they're laughing. And what is she supposed to do? Be mean to him? Nah, sorry, man. This is insanity. And I'm not going to defend what she said about, I can, friends with police and everything. But I think it would have been more appropriate if she came out and said, listen, I went to a football game. George W. Bush was there. What do you want me to do? You want me to start yelling at him and waving a protest sign? No, come on. George W. Bush is an American citizen, a former president. He's going to be at these games in the high-profile seats, and we're going to sit next to each other, and we're going to be polite to each other because we're both Americans. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to work together. We don't have to agree with each other. We just have to agree not to beat each other up and be civil. And this is what we're seeing. Okay, so regardless of all of the criticism, I'll give her a little criticism, and I'll give that woke outright some criticism. But civility. It's a picture of civility. It's a picture of a guy who I really, really do not like, sitting next to someone I kind of really don't care about. Am I going to get mad at either of them? No. You notice something really important? There's no outrage that Bush was sitting next to Ellen DeGeneres. Have you noticed any conservatives coming out and being like, I can't believe George W. Bush would sit next to her? No. Politics flows in one direction. I'll tell you that. Anyway, you get the point. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all there.